I feel like I'm being old because it's like I'm cold and then I'm warm and then I'm cold. I'm gonna go outside and it's gonna be temperate because I'm not telling you where I am. Because we're recording.
It's either
I'm
gonna
like
be
recording my audio.
It's either gonna be, you know, bright
Balmy.
and shiny, shiny tropics, or the
It's
Arctic
shiny.
Pole, or maybe Oceania. You're on a boat that's very, very stable right now.
You're working with Tom Cruise on that movie that's being shown in space, right? You're actually on the space station right now. This is
We're in space. I can fly.
All things are possible.
It's shunny.
Yeah.
It's always shunny in Philadelphia's.
Have you been listening to their podcast? Far be it from me to promote another podcast. You've been listening to the guys. So the guys who do the guys who write Always Sunny, they have a podcast. It's really good. It's one of those ones where they do, an episode a week or whatever, but like it's just genuinely really good.
I remember those.
Better than this, obviously. If anyone's listening to this and wants something a bit more entertaining, that's better.
Do you
Shout out to our competition that is beating us.
Yeah.
Oh, they are.
This is the thing about the internet. There is no competition on the internet. You can watch all of it. You're not up against a time slot.
It's true. Actually, I was
you have to
watching
know
somebody
anything about-
describe the difference between Twitch streams versus YouTubers, and how YouTubers trying to sort of like all the drama that can happen with like YouTuber culture of different sort of seemingly competitive channels sort of trying to do like DMCAs on each other when they do response videos and stuff. And they were saying it doesn't make sense to have that on YouTube because it's so not very near. It is not zero sum at all, given the fact that it is an on-demand platform. Whereas Twitch sort of makes more sense for people to be a bit more competitive with each other since it's live. And therefore, if you're watching me right now, it's at the expense of somebody else because you don't tend to watch Twitch after the fact. And I thought that was an interesting way to differentiate between the cultures of, people that live on Twitch versus those that live on YouTube, and why there is a bit more of a culture of supportiveness amongst YouTubers. Anyway, apropos of nothing, but I thought it was interesting where, it makes
I don't know, man. I kind of disagree because the thing that Twitch gives you is a raid, right? So there's a really great way for people to support other Twitch streamers and go, hey, everybody go raid this channel, or we're going to dump all of our followers into this other room. So I think that Twitch is way more, is that what you were saying? Is that Twitch is more supportive, or that YouTube was more supportive?
Saying that like from one personality or, content creator, as it were, to another, YouTube, it's easier to be supportive of one another, given that in real time, like there's nothing stopping you from watching two channels religiously. Whereas if two streamers are playing simultaneously, you have to pick one. And so they are going to naturally tend to be more territorial. But you're right. I mean, some of the most fun times I've ever had is like doing streams with Descartes where they'll find a channel that's a fraction of their size and rate it. And the person is like completely blown away, to see like hundreds of people just suddenly stream in unexpectedly to their kind of intimate corner of the internet. That is to me a really, really cool feature that I really enjoy every time.
Yeah, and it's non-performative. You know what I mean? It's not doing something for the benefit of showing others that you're being,
Yeah, it's not a flex.
Just like, there's like, I'm not going to benefit from this at all.
Says Gun Show
Apparently
Man.
the Super Bowl is. Look, guys. I'm very lonely right now. I've missed these weeks off. I'm about to head back into the fray, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But I've had a great several days off, and I don't know if this is relevant anymore. I feel like I'm always a little bit behind the curve on some stuff. This might be a Mike Bethel episode.
I'm ready.
They're my favorite. They're the ones I watch. I will.
They loop in the background.
I don't watch any of the other ones.
That guy's got some really good points. That's a smart fella right there. Yeah, that's cool.
I feel like in order to be a relevant person and to try to maintain some relevance to culture, I have to be where the conversation is. And the conversation, for better or for worse, is in social media. So you can say what you want to about social media. I've certainly have my take on it. But the reality is that if you want to know what the word on the street is, that's the street. And so there are the words. And it doesn't mean I necessarily have to engage with it. It doesn't mean I have to even have an opinion on it, but it's incontrovertibly true that is where the conversation is. So given that as a premise, I was really surprised with the Nintendo Direct. Look at that left turn.
That was solid.
I'm on topic a little bit. I was looking and seeing, I'm just curious, Mike, I know you've always says like any feedback is solid feedback. But the two, like the most consistent thing that I was seeing, sometimes both or one of the two, was if Nintendo doesn't announce Mario Kart 9 or Breath of the Wild 2, they go fuck themselves. It was just like there's nothing else that we want to see. There was the only two. I love Mario Kart. Like I got my Switch here and I'm like plowing through the mirror missions right now, and it's super fun. It's something that is challenging for me or Traveler can literally play. And that is a great game, right?
That's a sweet spot.
Broad base.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild is something that we've talked to our friend Andrea Piscino before. And here's someone who is a literal genius and has been in games for 3 decades. And that to him is like his absolute favorite game of all time ever been made ever.
Zenith of the art form.
Yeah. So I understand people being super stoked about that. But what I don't understand is, A, why do you think that is the cultural response? And B, do you think publishers, sub-question, developers care?
I've certainly been like, I like, one of the things that always happens whenever we announce anything or do anything that kind of we get any kind of platform support. So like we'll do I don't know, I'll write a blog post on the PlayStation blog or something. There will always be 50% of the responses to like my thought through kind of announcement of something I've worked years on will be, yeah, but when's this game out? Or what's the, you know what I mean? It's kind of it stings a little for sure. But like, I don't know. I think honestly, I think the Nintendo Direct model also kind of relies on that, right? Because it kind of relies on an audience watching who are waiting for that big announcement of that thing they want. It's kind of pooling, the idea being that like if you're into one thing Nintendo does, you're going to watch every Nintendo Direct, and that's going to give avenues for them to talk to you about every other thing that's important to them. So it's definitely, I think it's, isn't it kind of the plan? Isn't that kind of it working as designed to an extent? Like, obviously abuse sucks and people should be polite, but like, in terms of like, specifically, is it a problem that people are that fixated on a specific game? I think that's what Nintendo's doing. I think Nintendo's making the bet that if they put out a news story, or if they put out a video of the new Zelda, they get all the people there who won't see it. But if they do it all under one roof, they get to tell those same players about, you know, the Advance Wars re-release or this cool new indie game that they're throwing some support behind, you know? So I think it's working as planned. I think that's kind of I assume that's the logic behind it.
Austin, what do you think?
I don't really accept
Austin doesn't accept the question.
I know,
I don't accept the premise.
Austin's like, I'm not sure culture does happen on social media, Troy.
Actually, that is what I was going to say.
For all of it.
That is exactly what I was going to say. I think that
2 weeks,
as we've noted here, the actual user base of Twitter, and then the subset of that of people who actually tweet the most, represent a vanishingly tiny percent of the overall population. So it's an interesting thing where
but I'm not just saying Twitter though. I am broadly speaking about social media though, because that's going to include Reddit, that's going to include Instagram, that's going to include online conversations where the
TikTok thing I keep hearing about from the young people in my life.
Well, and Facebook is the real true, like, there you're talking about billions of users. I mean, that it's like, okay, that really is probably the sort of...
It's meta. It's meta now.
It's actually meta.
Thank you.
Meta. You look embarrassing out of touch, Austin, there. I'm sorry. Like, it's not...
I apologize for using...
This is a very current show.
I actually still call it thefacebook.com. Thank you very much. I miss my little, like, pixelated Zuckerberg in the corner.
Do you see they started calling their staff Metamates?
I've been trying to get a hold of the MySpace customer service. No one's answering.
Friendster.
Where is Tom?
I loved the Onion headline.
The 12 people in the audience who got that joke will have a great time.
Who are old enough to have I was friends with Tom. I kept him on there with his little, yep.
We all remember.
But I remember there was a great Onion headline that was like, digital archaeologists have found a lost civilization on MySpace where they were like, no one knows what happened, where it appeared to be a thriving civilization, and then one day complete abandonment, and it was hilarious. Anyway, all that said, I think that it's interesting where responses. I guess I was really specifically talking about Twitter in terms of it's really not representative of it is a far more self-selected group, sure. But that doesn't. This is where I was mixed because they do actually take the temperature of culture from Twitter, and it does have downstream effects, whether or not it is a representative sample of the overall user base or not. But that's where you can have games that are. It's kind of like the difference between Rotten Tomatoes user scores versus critic scores, where sometimes there can be a thing that's absolutely piled on by critics, but meanwhile gets great numbers and gets great sales and whatnot because the average consumer or the target audience for it is just way out of step with whatever the critics are looking for. And the flip has also happened plenty of times where you see movies with like 100% critic rating that are absolute bombs because the audience just doesn't give a shit. And so, yeah, that's where I found myself going, well, I don't know that I've never understood why they care as much as they do about like the Twitter response to a thing when you can have something get all riled up on Twitter and meanwhile still sell millions of units because the average person who's playing it doesn't care. But it is more complicated.
I don't think they did care. I don't think they did care. I think they 100% based upon obviously what they put out. They had to have known that people were going to be up in arms leading up to it. And even before they announced, hey, Nintendo Direct is going to be on this date. And that was, several days before. And immediately the
well, and this
the
is also
wheels
where
began turning as far as like
our our information filtration is also a problem because I'll see some things start trending amongst those that I follow where it's like, everyone is saying this, when in reality it's...
I never look at that.
But even the way that it filters the trending is sort of algorithmically specific to you. So it's still going to be a reflection of where my corner of the internet resides. And then you'll see the media pick it up and go...
for Twitter now.
Well, because then I'll see things where the media go, well, people on Twitter are saying this, and it'll be quoting like a few random accounts that are... Well,
that's just hack. That's just hack journalism.
But you see that that's like the default position. Yeah. Like this is, I guess, just me showing my general disdain for the media. But I do
this
see
show
that
has a completely different timbre without Alanah. I love it. It's good.
But it's true. I mean, how many times do you see things where it's presented as if this is the prevailing narrative, and their evidence of that is here's 3 random Twitter. You see that everybody does that. All ideologies, all that. That's not. I'm not taking lazy people of all.
I think lazy people of all ideologies do that for sure.
Especially because we live in a time where they need to have that article ready by noon and it's 11:30, so they will just grab whatever Twitter satisfies the demands of the article being written, whatever account, whatever tweet specifically, regardless of anything.
I don't even think it's by noon. I don't think it's so much of like, hey, we're going to press at this date. It is most people will read the most current article. Doesn't matter the source. So if the Guardian puts up something and it's topical and it says 38 minutes ago, people are going to read that versus something that is Washington Post or New York Times that was 3 hours ago. It's like, I want the most recent news. So the most recent is the last word is the only word that people are seeing. But I don't think that Nintendo really did care. They're like, well, this is what we're coming out with.
I think that's like I said. I think it's the intention. I think the more you're talking and the stronger your opinions are about Nintendo while they're trying to promote stuff, because everyone who sees any kind of talk about it is going to watch it. I think it all. And the
best news is that
fuels the machine.
Yeah, and the best news that came out of that was like we have Switches in stock, and that was the main thing. I think that people didn't even realize that they wanted was to know that they could actually buy them.
I also think that Nintendo,
because that's the number one problem.
I think that Nintendo is also kind of always just done what Nintendo's going to do regardless. I feel like that's sort of their MO just going back decades now, where there's always like Nintendo, if Nintendo had felt market pressure to do what they think the public wants, we would have seen, a move of games more like what you expect on Sony and Xbox and Steam and like, but Nintendo has always been pretty like assured of themselves in their identity to their
so.
to their
I
to
remember
their, like I say that positively.
Sure.
That it's part of what makes Nintendo as a word mean something other than just a platform. There's a brand, there's flavor and texture. So there's even musical implications for what.
Have you read? Did you read Oscar Water? Did you read that? It's a book. It's really good.
What is this?
It's not a book.
What is this so-called book medium?
Books. It's like this thing we used to do. It's very much the Twitter of its day. But no, it's,
you mean the Audible stuff?
Yeah, it's like Audible. It's like an Audible, but they write
Oscar
it down.
Water?
But on paper, yeah.
Ask Iwata. IWATA.
Oh, Ask Iwata. Actually,
that's the CEO of Nintendo.
Yes.
Or CEO?
Oscar Water?
That's what I heard too. I heard Oscar Water, and I was like, "Is that like?
It's because
Is that what they serve at the ceremony? It's like very expensive."
Oscar Water.
Oscar Water.
Oscar Water? Are you saying Oscar? Why you talk weird, feller?
It is weird. It's one thing
Ask
like
Iwata, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. It's worth a watch.
Yeah,
Sorry,
dude,
read. There you go.
I am.
I think you'll love it, Troy. It's because it's
It's-
more focused on his philosophy than you'd expect going in. Like it's about
Heck
how
yeah, dude. I'm into it.
kind of gives you a really real insight into exactly what you're talking about, Austin. That kind of Nintendo mindset.
I have
I'm a
heard
terrible
of this.
futurist. Because,
Sorry, go ahead, Troy.
I was gonna say I'm a terrible futurist because there have been twice when I've looked at Nintendo and been like, they're probably, you know what they probably should do? Get out of the hardware business, license all of their games to
Like the
everybody
Wii U
else.
felt like they've jumped the shark.
Completely. It was like, how did you do so good with the Wii and get it so wrong with the Wii U? And then when the Switch came out, I was like, you still don't got it. Oh, or is it going to be the number one platform?
Oh, see,
Not
I
only
felt
because of accessibility.
you were skeptical of the Switch.
When you
at
saw the
first.
Switch,
Oh yeah,
totally
to me,
skeptical of the Switch. It's like, nobody wants to do that.
well, maybe because I didn't
I was
really
wrong.
get
I was
into it.
ready to
until-
run up on the roof, and because that was the initial trailer, wasn't it? It was people on a roof playing with
Yeah.
it. Yeah. It's a bit.
And
Most
then coming
consoles
down,
are
it's
on
like, nobody
again,
wants
off
to
again.
hold these little
consoles-
things. They don't want to do that.
Most consoles have like a good one, a bad one, a good one, and you can map that. Well, you can map that to certain bosses within the industry moving between companies, but you can also map it to like, arrogance or having control of the marketplace. Like you can see like. Definitely not going to name and shame, but like you can definitely see consoles where it's been a good one and a bad one and a good one and a bad one. Like these people learn from the mistakes of the last
GameCube.
one.
People love that, but that's a terrible console. GameCube was not good.
It had a handle,
But-
Troy. You could take it anywhere, Troy.
Take it anywhere that you could plug in and have a TV
But you
attached
can
to it.
see
It
with
was,
that handle, you can see the kind of the roots. You can see them starting to think about that console as a social object and kind of taking it with you. And you can see those kind
for
of
sure.
Was
Yeah,
the
it's
GameCube
interesting.
actually
For sure.
terrible, or was it just that the 64 was so good that everything
64 was so great, even though it had the worst controller ever. Somebody was just like, fuck it, put it all in there. It was had a joystick and buttons and triggers and 2 or 3 handles. It was the weirdest controller, the least ergonomic controller.
I definitely never
It felt like it
understood
was
the
trying-
middle prong, the like trident model, but
If you want to hold it like this,
I just
who
can't
does
recall
that?
ever
You hold
doing
it like
that.
this.
Yeah, but it didn't.
the GameCube was a good console. Like the GameCube, it was such a good
played a
console.
ton
it
of
was the
GameCube.
Wii eventually. Like the Wii is basically a GameCube in a different shaped box. So like it was effectively. There's some changes.
I don't remember the controllers for the GameCube being that.
No,
like-
I'm saying
like
the hardware.
that.
A lot of the hardware in the Wii is the GameCube. Like it's a souped up.
Well, that was the
GameCube,
next iteration
basically.
of it, wasn't it? Did it go GameCube to Wii?
It was
Is that
GameCube
the
to
biggest
Wii,
jump? That was a
but in terms of the
Man,
tech
that would've
under
been
the
a
hood,
huge
the
jump.
two were more similar than people I think realize in terms
Like
of what the actual
versus say
technology
the
was.
difference between PS4 and 5, where the 5 is just a considerably more powerful piece of
Yeah, I can't. It's
2
been a
and
while. I
3.
can't remember off the top of my head, but like GameCube and the Wii are on a hardware level very, very similar in terms of what's inside the box. Obviously, the innovation comes with the controller and all of that, but.
Yeah, for sure, but that's what's so funny is that it had nothing to do with really I'm sure there's a lot of hardware and processing power that goes into being able to have those controllers do that, but it had nothing to do with like what do we do with the console. Their focus shifted to the controller, and that is what unlocked everything. That is what got grandmothers to play. That's what got people. The whole mentality was get people off the couch. And I think everybody else was saying, how do we keep them on the couch? How do we keep them playing? And this was, we don't. That's they're smart, man. These guys know what they're talking about, and I've been watching a lot of. I talked to you about this last time, Mike. I've been watching a lot of poker, and I'm now going through the 2005 World Series, and it's just so crazy to watch this random change. And somebody actually corrected me in the comments, and thank you. I said that 2003. The whole reason why the poker boom happened was because I'm sorry I don't remember your.
I read that comment. I know exactly the comment.
Great comment. They were like, "You're partly right."
Took issue with your historicity of
yeah.
World Series
I was like,
I think they were bluffing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. It was not only there was a really critical component to, and this actually ties in. So give me a second. There was a critical component to not only the 2003 World Series being won by an internet player, Chris Moneymaker, but it was also the fact that ESPN picked it up. On their main channel, I believe, and they put cameras in the feature table, and they started doing a feature table thing, so you could actually see what were in the hole cars, and all of a sudden, instantly drama happened, and the audience was able to engage with the sport. Whereas before, it was a purely observational thing.
Was it? What was your mistake? Was it leaving off the ESPN part, or what was the
ESPN and the whole card camera? So being able to see that is like that's really what did it. Was all of a sudden there was now something for the audience to watch versus these people just playing, and you turn it over and that's when the drama happened. It's like I don't want to make it to that part. So that's a really good point to add in. To that end, it's exactly what Nintendo's doing, where you can see this huge evolutionary jump happen.
Should I let in Alanah, or do we want to talk about poker for the rest of today?
No, I want to talk about poker.
We should
I'd love for her to come in and go, we're talking about poker,
on
Alanah.
YouTube, we should prank her. We need to work out... well, that will be enough for prank. It's just
I should
have pushed it
and so
already.
that's really why I feel like my time has come, and it's probably best.
You've had a great run, for what it's worth. I salute you.
To hang up the mic. I don't feel like, or the suit, as it were. Yeah. I don't need to do any of those things.
She's thoroughly distracted.
There's a.
I can't also no audio. She's fighting at the moment.
Doesn't matter. But man, that boom arm.
I can hear you. Were you quitting?
No, just breaking you. Hi, baby.
Very well executed.
Oh, you have headphones on. She can't hear me.
Very
Are you going to adopt
excited.
that dog?
I intend to, but I'm trying to make sure that would be a responsible thing for me to do first, because she might need more humans and a larger home and a backyard. But she's also pretty in love with me, so it'll be tough.
You can find a park somewhere around where you live. And
it's also like a time thing. I just spend so much time in a PC all day that she mostly seems to be fine, but she's going crazy right now because she needs to go for a walk, which at least she knows how to tell me that. So what was the prank? I'm so sorry. Do you want to start again? Hang on.
No. Okay. So if you look, no matter how high you get, the curvature of the Earth, you can never see it.
You can never see it. There's no evidence.
That's proven.
I'll believe it when I see it with my own eyes.
Right. But it doesn't matter, because that's why the Earth is... Hey, Alanah.
Hey.
I visited the ice wall, for the record.
You visited the ice wall?
Yeah. I got turned away by the FBI.
Don't they say that there are penguins guarding it? That the penguins there are aggressive, I think is a thing. Yes.
Please tell me that's true.
They're like government engineered penguins.
Like super penguins.
Like
Danny DeVito's down there.
Yes. I made one flat earther YouTube video once. To be clear, my stance was that it's nonsense. And so I still get comments from them all. Hey, she just stole a coffee cup out of my bin. You can't do that.
Watch me.
Okay.
I totally get flat earthers, man.
I have a friend that when he graduated from school, he's a composer, and he was going to move to LA. He was going to school in Boston, and he said, before I move to LA, I want to do one last sort of wild adventure, since theoretically that won't be possible moving forward. So he and his friends rented like a they bought an old decommissioned school bus, and they drove it from Boston to Antarctica over a 6-month period. And
Wow.
They literally got, well, you go all the way to the southern tip of Argentina, and then you get on a boat.
For 4 days, right? It's or 2 days at sea, the Drake's Passage.
It's a couple of days. Yeah, I think it's a whole under. I mean, this took them half a year, the whole thing, and there was only one part of it where they theoretically cheated. There was like one narrow segment of like Panama, which was just overtly controlled by drug cartels, where they had to put the bus on a boat and basically go out into the Pacific Ocean and go around and reconnect with the land, like in you know.
So then,
a friend called like Jeremy Clarkson. This feels like one of their episodes.
It was a crazy. Yeah. The funny thing was that, relevant to what you were just talking about, the funny thing is that he told me the biggest takeaway he had from arriving in Antarctica was the overwhelming smell of bird shit. He was like, it's sort of a static environment. And so
no bears.
So to be clear, you can just arrive there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they've changed it to where you have to be a part of a science research vessel.
That's
like
what
you
I
can't.
But I don't think you could stay. I think it was like, it's kind of like
or
a
have
cruise.
a school bus. Maybe they presented it was like a school trip.
The school bus was abandoned in Argentina at that point, but they
with the cartel, yeah.
They basically get. No, that was more.
It happens.
That was you need to be playing worldly. That makes you guess countries based on their shape.
I gave that a try, and I gave Loodle a try, and I was like, "Fuck either of these! I can't do."
Did you know that Loodle was made by Gary Whitta?
Yes.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah, I think that's.
I found it because he kept tweeting about it.
Yeah, it's just he won't show.
That's.
See, I heard about it independently. I heard about it independently, and then I saw him tweeting. I was like, "Wow, he's such a fan of Loodle." And then at some point, I realized, "Holy shit, that's his thing." That's so funny.
What
that
is
means Gary
Loodle?
Whitta sat and typed in a bunch of rude words into a spreadsheet at some point, and
that is
the
all he does.
mental image of that makes
it makes sense.
I think Gary Whitta doing that makes perfect sense to me.
It makes perfect sense,
but
but it's a wonderful
only
mental image, right?
Isn't it 5? It's 5-letter
I like
bad
to
words.
imagine
Is
he
that
tries
what it
cup
is?
of tea.
Hard. My head always goes to 4-letter bad words.
Yeah,
hard.
the problem is somebody told me about that the other day on set, and I was like, there's like 12 that came to my mind. I was like, child.
Yeah, no, I'm not good at it.
Adolescent.
I did get my Wordle today on the second guess, though, which never happens. It's my first second guess. Is a huge win.
This is all about flexes today, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Alanah Marie Aloysius Pearce the third.
You're not supposed to say my full name.
I know. Well, I left out the other two.
You just revealed her lineage, her royal lineage.
When she got baptized, they almost drowned her. It was just like, oh, Jesus. So many names. Well, one more. There you go.
And that's how I ended up like this.
Avoid Satan. I was talking about Nintendo Direct.
I love that. Yay, look at you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just talking about how
hilarious that you
was
showing up. We went immediately off topic. You had your normal. You had the opposite of your normal effect.
That was a dog. We can bring it back. You can bring it back. What were we talking about?
I was saying how I was surprised, not surprised, but the general conversation that at least I was seeing, which could have been different from anybody else, was that if Nintendo wasn't going to talk about or they weren't going to announce a release date, it wasn't just like we're working on it. It was like we want to know a release date of Mario Kart 9 and or Breath of the Wild 2. They didn't want anything to do with a Nintendo Direct. And I was just curious what your thoughts were, especially now being a part of a dev, if you guys, if you feel that, hey, in anticipation of PSX or whatever it is now, or E3 or Comic-Con or any of these big tentpole four-wall, whether it be something that you like Nintendo does on their own or Sony does on their own, something that's a part more of like Gamescom or whatever, where it's more of an international event. It's like people are going to be expecting us to show this. If you agree with that pressure, or if you feel like it's truly indicative of a culture, or what your thoughts are.
I think if anybody ever expects anything from a Nintendo Direct, they're nuts. I feel like you should never go into a Nintendo Direct and expect anything. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just that they just really, every time I can't predict what's going to be in them, and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't expect this. I think that you're setting yourself up to fail. I feel like it's probably certainly difficult for the marketing teams who have to deal with that kind of thing to figure out, like, well, we know that this expectation exists. How do we cater to that? Like, I wonder how often they do cater to pressure. In my head, like, being part of a team, if they were to show something from Santa Monica Studio, I think it's like, it'd be exciting for me if I was seeing people like really hotly anticipating it and then getting to watch their reactions to it. But I don't feel like I would ever feel like we would need to, because people want to see more stuff. I don't have to think about that, thankfully. But Nintendo Directs are never what I expect. I thought this one was great though. I was not expecting Breath of the Wild. I'd be shocked if that comes out this year. I think like we've seen nothing, and especially considering the history of how many Zelda games have been delayed, it's not like a safe bet by any means.
But that will be
Mario Kart.
If it launches Mario Kart 9. Dude, look,
Advance Wars was all about Advance Wars, guys. Come on. That was the big one.
I do know a lot of Advance Wars fans, yeah.
I'm surprised. It feels like they're backpedaling on the whole Assassin's Creed thing, because that's dropping this week. And I just am seeing nothing for it.
Ezio
So it makes me feel like
Collection?
I feel like it's another potential. I'm not trying to disparage it at all, but I'm wondering if it's a little bit more like the GTA port, to where it's like, you don't want to play it on the Switch.
I think part of the thing with the Ezio Collection is that it's very hard to go back and play, which is unfortunate because I loved those games. But if you try and play them now, because Assassin's Creed has not
Evolved so
only
much.
it's evolved so much, but also influenced so many other games, like especially the climbing, that I think now going back to play the Ezio Collection is actually difficult. I think you'd be fine if you'd never played an Assassin's Creed and you go straight to the Ezio Collection. You're going to have a great time. I think they're fantastic.
Okay, then as someone who loves GTA 5, would you go back and play the anthology or the collection that they did? Did you go back and do it? Did you go back and play Vice City and...
So we actually just got a comment yesterday where somebody was like, lol, this aged poorly, because apparently there was like one of our first maybe 20 episodes where I said how awesome it would be if they remastered GTA Vice City. It was like, I just want Vice City.
And when they do, it'll be excellent.
And I didn't play it.
It will be excellent.
Because I saw a bunch of videos showing the performance. So my logic was, I'll wait a bit and hope that it gets a little bit better. Because I would love to, because I think I had mentioned it on that episode that I couldn't finish that game because I got a game-breaking bug. So I played like maybe 10 hours and then had to stop. So I'd love to go back to Vice City. But yeah,
original you couldn't finish?
Yeah, it broke.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I had the GTA trilogy collection, this little box set, and I played the others, but I couldn't play Vice City. So I'd love that. But no, I mean, I don't feel like... I feel like GTA is old enough that the idea that it's aged poorly, even as somebody who's played, I don't know, 500 hours of GTA 5, doesn't hurt me. Oh, that's my doorbell.
Someone's at the door.
Someone's at the door. It's fine.
I'm never not
Alexa,
alarmed by your
tell them to go
Android
fuck off.
voice, Alanah.
Yeah, Android voice
Someone
is pretty
is
good.
at the door. I still just really want to do... Just anybody ever hire me for one of those marketing trailers where I get to do the Red Dead 2 lady voice, which is like, in Red Dead Redemption 2. I just want to do it so bad.
The gameplay demo.
Yes. And here we see Trevor.
Kinda, yeah.
You should do a voiceover of one of our Play Watch Listens where you're like, now Troy is going to bring up something unrelated. And like just like a director commentary.
I'll do a director's commentary. Oh my, hello.
As a different person.
I know.
I've never seen a dog not lose
dog.
their shit at a doorbell, by the way.
So she's very protective, which means she will only lose her shit about things that are in my immediate proximity. She won't leave to go.
Not a good long-term planner.
Look at that.
Shouldn't look at like your financial portfolio to start barking. And
she's like a deer.
She's gorgeous. She really is.
Yeah, she's so pretty.
Yeah. I do hope that I can adopt her. I just want to make sure it wouldn't be mean. But yes, basically anyone who's immediately around me, she cares very much about. She won't leave my side. I managed to get her to go outside to go to the bathroom while I was inside yesterday, and she was just staring at me the whole time. She's like,
I'll have to send you the picture. I'm obviously out of town. Pam and Traveler were I think they were hanging out with Travis and Laura. They were hanging out with Travis and Laura. So she's like, not close to our house. And all of a sudden I see the ring notification that there's motion at our front door. I was like, what? So I look and I see nothing. And it's like, okay. And I see it again. And I was like, what the hell? And I look and I see just this on the bottom right-hand corner, just this little blonde moving back and forth. And I zoomed in and looked, and 8-Bit had somehow gotten out. And after his escapades, he was like, okay, I'm ready to go back inside now. And he was just parked with his butt pressed up against the front door. I was like, somebody come let me in.
oh my God.
And I stayed on the phone with him. I was like, hey, buddy, I'm right here. Stay right by the door.
That's cute.
Yeah. And he was like, looked up at the doorbell. I was like, Dad. And I called Pam. I was like, you need to get home right now. And I remember she said, she's like, Traveler's naked. I don't know what to do. Because Traveler just doesn't want to put clothes on. She's like, leave him there. And she drove home and she got in, and he was so happy to see her. Dogs are the best.
Yeah, they're pretty wonderful. Speaking of dogs, just, a transition that works in my head for some reason. I'm very excited about that Kirby game.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Oh my god. It's so
This is the
it's
post-apocalyptic one, right?
yes.
What? Are you
I'm
serious?
so excited about the
God.
Kirby game. Like I
I need to watch that trailer again.
I've always
to
loved
remind
Kirby.
myself.
I've
do you
always
eat,
been a big
zombies?
Kirby fan. I mean, you eat a car, you eat a traffic cone.
It's like Kirby, but it's set in like a semi-photorealistic post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, some of it
watch
looks
the
like The
trailer.
I
Last
would
of
love
Us.
to have been in the pitch meeting. Yeah,
Kirby
it's weird.
and the
It's exactly
Forgotten
like The
Land.
Last of Us.
Some of it legitimately looks like Last of Us. It's like a busted up mall. Oh my gosh, I just think it looks so like I've always enjoyed Kirby, and like some of the games aren't great, some of them are very good. But I feel like this one, just something about like the 3D Kirby ridiculousness of becoming a car in a post-apocalyptic world as Kirby. I'm so on board, and that's the thing that I love about Nintendo Directs is I just feel like there's always something that you don't expect there. I know a lot of people are really excited about Live Alive, which I only know about because of Pearce Schneider, who was co-founder of IGN. When I worked there, would talk about it all the time as a Japanese-only release that's now coming to the West that is super exciting. I know a lot of people who are excited about Advance Wars. There's always something for everybody. The thing that
I
I don't
respect
get
an
about
asset
I'm
reuse.
sorry.
Like, it's because it's the Mario hat mechanic, right? That they've based, but it's
True.
a really nice reuse. It's a really nice reuse of it.
I just want to. May I point out,
that.
please? I looked this game up, and under the description of it, it goes. Google will give you. People also ask.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to give you.
Is Troy Baker in?
Does Troy Baker voice Kirby?
Is Kirby a boy or a girl? Number one question.
Interesting.
The other question next to that is, what is Kirby's real name?
I believe it's Kirby.
This bullshit.
Isn't he named
Kirby.
after a lawyer? Isn't
Yes,
that the story
he
of
is.
Kirby? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kirby's original. I
Named
didn't know
after a
this.
lawyer.
Kirby's original name, Popopo, would later be referenced in Kirby Mass Attack as it is set on the Popopo Islands.
Huh, that's cute. Yeah, it's named after they had an American
Was Kirby
lawyer
originally
who
white?
I believe his name
Kirby
was they race bent Kirby.
Jesus.
I believe his name was Steve Kirby. And
That's right, yeah.
he was like a sort of round man, and
Steve Kirby.
He's known for eating everything.
Yes,
Just literally ate the boardroom table during a meeting.
Sorry, guys. I was really hungry on my way
That's a
in.
weird pattern because wasn't Jaws named after a lawyer as well? Wasn't Bruce the Shark?
might be right.
Wasn't
Bruce Jaws and Steam
Bruce Jaws.
was their lawyer.
And bigger jaws.
We're gonna
I'd like to
Jaws
distance
it.
myself from that joke.
I will not be associated with that joke going forward. Thank you.
Great, here we go.
Strike that from my record, please.
I was just trying to make it was either going to be that or Swedish. It was going to be
Yeah.
Jossenston or whatever. People were like, how dare you? Let me get back in the hot water. It's starting to
Yeah,
acclimate.
you're being canceled for a second time, and it's because you said Bruce
Fourth,
Jaws and
probably.
Steen.
Yeah, who I can't keep
I'm
track.
going
No,
Kirby
everybody's
colored
been
now. This
cancelled.
is
Anyway, I think that game looks awesome. The thing with Mario Kart that I
right.
find interesting, have you guys played a lot of Mario Kart 8?
Bring it, absolutely.
Kart 8! I think it's fantastic. It's
I
wonderful.
want the soundtrack. That soundtrack is slaps. So
Austin,
good.
is the soundtrack not available anywhere? I feel like you should
Nintendo
maybe answer that.
famously is horrible about this.
Really?
They
Really?
never. Yeah.
Oh,
they
interesting.
They never. I shouldn't say never, but it's pretty hard to get a hold of soundtrack albums to tons of like original Disney Nintendo stuff.
Interestingly, they are famously pretty terrible in the content creation space too. In that, they used to restrict people from even posting Let's Plays, but most recently took down a whole bunch of channels that were creating like Pokemon fan content.
It's the same with
including-
live shows.
yeah.
Like a
Kidding.
friend of mine developed the that Twilight of the Goddess Zelda orchestra tour.
Oh yeah.
And they made it sound like, from just a legal standpoint, that was an unbelievable nightmare to get off the ground. And it really only worked. I think, if I had to guess, I'm not quoting them directly here, but I suspect part of the only reason they were able to do that in the end was because it was only that. But for example, I've done a lot of shows with Video Games Live, and they always had very, very little on there by way of Nintendo because those licenses were incredibly tedious to get.
Yeah.
Well, I just
Nintendo's
can't find their soundtrack albums on anything. I'm having a look. You're absolutely right. Yeah,
No,
it's-
yeah, and my
it's not
friend,
anywhere.
a very good friend of mine, Danny Baranowski, wrote the music for Cadence of Hyrule, which they also their no soundtrack album
Danny's
was
great.
allowed to be released, which is surprising given that his soundtrack to the predecessor to that, Crypt of the Necrodancer, was like a mega hit. It was practically as popular as the game itself. And
Interesting because I feel like Nintendo's music is always that way. Like, it's always very popular. Like, some of the most.
I mean, I would
iconic
argue
songs in
that
the game.
Koji Kondo's theme to the original Mario is the most iconic piece of video game music ever written in the history of the medium. Like,
Which
Sure.
one? Just
the
the-
theme.
the-
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Yeah, that. Like, the fact that, have you ever seen those, like, kids react to Nintendo where they'll hear the theme on it boot up and they don't even know what it is, but they can finish the melody. It goes da-na-na-na-na, and they go blah. And, like, they
It's almost
are
like
younger
folk
than the
music
console.
at this point, you know.
It's like Jaws. It's like Psycho.
Yeah.
You hear the and you can have never seen it, and you know what it is. You know what it means. Kids are like that
Yeah.
with Mario. That theme. That's why I always say people hold up that he wrote the theme to Zelda and Mario, and they treat those as equal musical accomplishments. And I've always said Mario is 1,000 times more than Zelda as a musical achievement, because not everyone on the planet knows, bum bum ba 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 ba, but they do know Mario.
Yeah,
And
I think if I called my dad and I said, "What is this?" and I hummed Mario, he'd know what it was.
Not just
But
that,
here's what's funny.
it's also more original, because the way I look at it, hold that thought, Troy. I want to know what's funny, but here's my one little thought is, you have a Japanese studio
Biceps
making.
again. I love it.
Hold it.
You missed all the flexing earlier, Alanah. It's a theme of the episode.
Oh,
It's good.
do I have to watch it back?
Well, for your director's commentary, you have to regardless. So you have a Japanese composer writing music about Italian plumbers crushing turtles and sort of quasi-dinosaur bad guy dragon types, and the response to that is to write like lounge jazz, which will I'm like, it's the biggest acid trip of originality in ever. Like, everything about that I don't know why any of those variables add up on the,
But they do.
but it adds up into a thing that is eternal. So yeah, to me Koji Kondo is that contribution just transcends everything, and the fact that they hold that so close to the chest, I think it's probably just part of the sort of corporate culture. That's just part of just the nature of how a lot of Japanese companies operate, because it seems to be not just Nintendo but they're famously
true, yeah.
they're famously that way in the music domain. Okay, Troy, let it go.
I don't know if I would recognize as readily, like Zelda, especially, if it had been presented in a different form. Like if someone sat down at the piano, or if there was like a violin concerto that was playing that or whatever, I don't know if I would recognize that as much as the original 8-bit music of Zelda. You know what I mean?
I mean, well, there are orchestral, like all the subsequent, you listen to like Breath of the Wild, you can hear
Ocarina
the
of Time.
introspective piano version, or
It just has this, like, I could recognize the Song of Storms anywhere, I think, but that I feel like it's because Ocarina of Time is a music-based game.
Yeah,
in
for me
theory,
also
which is something we
always
never really
the-
address. Yeah.
that to me is, it's funny how you hear and like some generation, that's what one generation hears.
My
say
head went to
Simpsons.
Simpsons. Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it's pretty. I hear them both, but that's always one of those. Anytime I'm screwing around in that mode, I'll accidentally bump up against that, and I go, nope, walk away, because you're just gonna end up derivative.
can't have this.
But it's such a good groove.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I feel like Mario Kart like also has incredible music. And what I was gonna say was actually I had friends who did this Pokemon RPG like D&D thing that I guested on for an episode, which was super fun. And they had a whole app that somebody had made around it where it like tracks your stats, so that you could play this like D&D version. Nintendo took it down. They've taken on YouTube channels recently. I've heard of them even taking down, like, people had just parties that were Pokemon themed. Like, maybe it was a bar that did it, but Nintendo shut it down. They're just very protective of the IP, and I guess it works for them because we still do, after all this time, look at Nintendo as wholesome family content, which is exactly what they're going for, and it can't be easy to maintain that.
Well, this is what I was saying about Mario Kart is that the thing that I love about the game and the reason why I'm so into it is it's just an easy pick up and set down game. It's super challenging for me the higher up you go. But it's still something that Traveler can pick up and play as well. And we actually got the cart, the physical cart that has a camera on it, and using AR, it's so much fun.
Is it? I saw all the trailers. I never tried it. I was always skeptical of if
so
it worked.
worth it. It's
rad.
so kitschy, but it's so much fun. You set up a race and you draw by using the cart, you draw the race course around your house, and it does the whole thing like a Mario Kart. It sets up power-ups and it sets up the
I did not know that existed. Everything. That sounds awesome.
Dude,
yeah, it's really cool.
It is so much fun. And if you get two of them together, it's hilarious.
It's really
cool.
And
it looks like it's going so fast because the camera is just like, wide angle like a GoPro, and you play it on your Switch, but it's like when your house goes, it's going so slow. I have to bounce because Transpo is going to be picking me up in just a little bit. But before I leave, Alanah, can I buy you a power strip so you don't have a fire hazard that's happening behind you?
So that is there because usually.
Holy shit, man!
That is bad.
Let me address it. I'm aware. I'm aware.
It's Griswold worthy.
It's there because usually my dev kit is there, so all of those cables are like neatly packaged around the dev kit, but I moved the dev kit upstairs just because I wanted to lay in bed while playing.
But that brick plugged into the plug with like 20 power adapters.
It has to be that way though. You need, because it's also like that's my work cable, but also the dev kit and the TV, it requires so much, and you also like I can't really talk about it probably, but the setup for the dev kits is complicated.
Sure, but get a power strip. Just get a power strip. Nice little power strip. It keeps it, for some reason it doesn't
surge protector, which is quite useful.
That
surge
does
protector,
have a
which
surge
would save you a
protector
difficult.
that
has a surge protector.
It has a surge
fair
protector.
play. Okay, all right. I back up.
That part is all right.
I back up.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4.
All I know is that any moment your dog is going to go, the floor's on fire. I'm the chair.
I'm the chair.
But Dad, she won't care if we're in a different room, though. If it's not near me, she'll be like, it's fine. I'm not worried about it. But I was going to ask before you do go, Troy. Not that I'm asking you, I'm really asking Mike. I guess you can leave if you want.
All right.
Mike,
I'll stick around.
Mike, do you have a guess for why...
Now I just feel bad about this. Go on.
Do you have a guess for why they, like a business instinct guess for why they haven't made Mario Kart 9 and they're continuing to just release Mario Kart 8 forever when Nintendo is not typically like a live games as service company?
I think that's why they're testing it, because they are starting to push more and more to
online. For Mike.
Yeah, Troy.
That's all right. I concede the floor. I'm magnanimous in my.
Such a giving.
Please, Troy, give us your thoughts on this.
Actually, Troy, try to give Mike's, try to just embody Mike's response and give us.
Now I want to hear
Troy's
Troy.
accent as well, please, Troy.
Oscar Walter. Hello, everybody. Oscar Walter. My name is Oscar Walter. Hello, Oscar.
You can give your actual answer if you want to.
Look, I buy a lot of stuff off of Switch, and I see that they're starting to push more like, hey, you can get this if you're part of the online community, and we're really starting to push Nintendo online. And I think that if you have such a big successful franchise like Mario Kart, that's a really good way to go. Why don't we just start transitioning everybody over to here, and you'll get in-game add-ons as opposed to add in, it's add on. You get more carts, you get more courses. I don't think they can add any more characters, and I don't think anybody really uses their amiibos for that. I mean, I don't. I just I go back and forth. Traveler likes to play as Wendy. It's the funniest thing. He thinks that she is hilarious.
Aww,
because she's so grumpy.
That's so cute.
So he'll be like, "I'm Wendy. I'm grumpy." But yeah, I think that's what it is. But to be honest with you, I'm really more interested to know what Mike thinks. Mike, I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah, Mike.
That's very kind of you, Troy.
Exactly what's about to.
I knew he was going to leave. I fucking knew it. I knew it.
It's fine. It's
Son
fine.
of a bitch.
What'd be hilarious is like he lost power and he's going no on the other end.
No! Oh, what? I disrespect Mike.
Ironically, due to a lack of power strip.
Exactly. Yeah, his power strip broke. Yeah. Honestly, similar to what Troy said, I think the mistake people always make with Nintendo is they think they're not kind of weird or bold or experimental in what they do. I think it's like, when you see that footage, like that slow-mo footage of, not slow-mo, like time-lapse footage of plants, where if you look at a plant, it's moving, but very slowly, and then when you speed it up, you're like, oh, that thing's like a thing that's alive. That makes sense. Nintendo's exactly the same. It's a weird metaphor.
What?
I apologize.
How is Nintendo exactly the same as a
if you don't water
plant time-lapse?
Nintendo,
they are one of the most innovative. They're one of the most innovative.
I strongly agree. They're super innovative.
But in a very kind of clever, slow, methodical way. So like, there's that thing that someone pointed out, which is utterly true, which is that they basically have successfully launched a new IP once a year for like the last 10 years. And with like clockwork, like they basically always bring out one new IP. You think of Nintendo as basically making Mario and Zelda games on a loop, but actually if you look, they are absolutely cultivating these kind of landmarks of trying out new IP. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but generally kind of works pretty steady. So the answer to this question for me is, the reason this isn't Mario, what would it be? Mario Kart 9 now, right? Would be the next one. The reason it's not that is because it doesn't need to be yet, because they can absolutely take their time. You're asking for it as a player, but like they know full well that they can put out some cool new tracks, they can put out some new characters, whatever, and they'll keep that audience going. And also, honestly, they probably are, as Troy said, kind of wanting to experiment with this stuff, but with an IP that they know people are already into. It's also Mario Kart as well, by nature of its design, is very expandable, right? It's very easy to add new tracks.
And I'm excited about all the new tracks. Like, it's super cool. And I think it's... Part of it, when I saw people complaining that they haven't brought out a new one, as someone who doesn't care, maybe I should have been more reflective, is why don't I care? That game is still so good, and I still play it frequently. I'm sure a lot of people still do. Adding new content satisfies my need for more Mario Kart, as opposed to creating an entirely new Mario Kart, because I don't feel like I don't even know what they can do. And it seems better to maintain that franchise with like back-to-back bangers than to release something just because.
They're not playing on a 2-year loop like everyone else. They're planning like 5-10 years ahead. They're looking at Mario Kart 9 and going, there's no reason to do this. There's no new hardware we want to play with. There's no experiment that we want to do.
I mean, that's
probably when we move beyond the Switch.
Chase?
The quote of like, no one remembers your release date is always attributed to Miyamoto anyway, of at least that I always see. There's probably multiple people that have said similar things, but the idea that the release date matters a lot less than the thing you are releasing, and take your time, push a year, push 2 years, do what it takes. And it seems like that is
built into their model,
that seems to be their thing, because there are very few games, like you mentioned, these big tentpole, like AC or Far Cry, or like they have a tendency to be like, oh, this is the one that the audience really loved. Next one didn't strike quite as much, but then the next one really did. Whereas, the lesser successful Zelda titles, for example, are still
beloved.
Like, I think, and they almost entirely have just A+ output in that one in particular.
Nintendo make such good games. Like,
they do.
And so, like, they're so polished, and their file sizes are so small. Oh my god. Run away with my cables? Jesus Christ.
I love that. The file sizes, that's the thing I admire.
I don't know how
Nintendo.
they do it. Like, if everything's that polished, they have great music, they're beautiful, and they have so few bugs. She pulled my whole mouse off the table. Yeah, it's because she needs to go to the bathroom. But they're also tiny. Like, I just feel like they're so efficient in a way that we unfortunately don't understand, because they're also incredibly secretive. So
they also have, like, they've built they use, as far as I know, the bulk of their games. It's not true of all of their games, but the bulk of their games are working on their own internal engines, which will be free of a lot of the guff that those of us in the rest of the games industry have to kind of put up with.
Yeah.
They're also targeting a lower resolution, which means that they're targeting lower texture sizes, which means, again, that's a big issue.
That is true.
Stylistically, their games definitely are towards that, but it's great, and they put the work in. It's the book I recommended earlier. The have you read that, Alanah? Ask Iwata.
Yeah, I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, it kind of sums up a lot of this thought process, and it's just beautiful.
Because you haven't read it?
Really good.
No, I feel shamed because you instantly knew what he was saying.
Oscar.
Yeah, that was the joke Troy was doing. Was they were like they just didn't get it.
We
They were
both,
like,
both
"Oscar,
Troy and I
what?"
had no idea what he was saying. It was like one of these weird moments of.
Oh,
just,
you would say ask Iwata.
yes, I would
That's
say
how
it
you
just
talk.
like that.
Hi, I'm Austin Winnery, and I'm reading Ask Iwata.
It's uncanny. It's like there's two of
Yeah,
them. on
close
the-
your
I
eyes and
know.
see if you can tell who's who.
I try not to do it too often because it makes people think that I'm Austin, and it seems like that should be illegal.
Yeah,
so-
you don't want to.
gets
You
you
don't
in
want to like
certain,
diminish
you know,
his.
It gets you in certain rooms, like
Yeah.
with
It's
Imagine
amazing.
Dragons.
This is messing my brain up. It is funny though when you go in when I like so because Kerry's working in America at the moment, but she's in Portland. And so I'm going over to Portland every now and again, and people don't understand my accent there. Like, it's a really weird thing. Like, it's something I've not, obviously,
Really?
position of privilege I've never experienced before. Like, because when you go to like a metropolitan, well, Portland's metropolitan, but you know what I mean. Like when you go to like a big tourist city,
Small
like
town
New York
Portland.
or LA.
I mean, Portland is not a huge city, though.
compared to LA and New
Yeah,
York,
they
it kind
probably
of
don't
is,
get
right?
as many
I think it-
foreigners.
I think Portland
the
has
that's
a
the
bigger
thing I think is,
cultural
like-
footprint than literal size. Like it
Yeah.
is actually a pretty.
It's lovely. It's lovely,
Oh,
but
I
it's definitely
love
like
Portland.
the smaller end.
I
But they
think that
don't
maybe
understand
when I
English
was-
people there.
I think when I was in Australia, I probably wouldn't have known what Portland was. I probably learned
Yeah.
since coming here. I probably wouldn't have heard of the city. It makes sense. The one thing that I was saying this to someone the other day that I've heard Brits say that nobody understands is the way some Brits pronounce the word salt. Americans would say salt. Some Brits say salt. S-A-W-E, salt. They don't
I say
put
salt.
the L or the T. They just say salt. And that doesn't translate very well.
I
It's a
definitely
lot of
posh
barriers
it
to
up
salt.
when I'm talking to Americans. I
some
definitely like
salt.
posh myself up a little bit. Like
Yeah.
definitely
What do
go
you
a
got
little
now?
bit, little Colin Firth.
No, that's okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
so much stress.
You're right.
That's been a funny subject of conversation with Anhila, where she moved here, and we'll be watching something, and like it'll be some joke where somebody has like a really, really exaggerated New York accent or whatever, and I'll laugh, and she'll go, "Why did you laugh?" Because the subtext of that, just as someone who didn't grow up in the United States and who watched a
Right.
lot of American media with overdub, like they it's standard in Latin America to just watch the Latin American dub as opposed to the original English, like if it's a TV show or a movie or something from the US. So she so I would say like I would say, you know, but so the concept of why something could be built to play off those is totally normal to her. But what's hilarious to me is that in my mind, like a strong New York accent or a Boston accent versus like a Texas accent or a deep South like Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi accent.
Troy would be having so much fun right now.
Oh, I
He's
know.
here.
This is almost
We're
mean.
missing out. We're
Yeah.
missing out.
The differences between those are so blaring, and she just hears it and goes, it just sounds like an American. And it's like they all meld
way.
together for
Wow.
her. Yeah, they have to be so extreme. And I remember thinking, wow, I just can't calibrate to that. But then again, she'll listen to, 15 Spanish speakers and be like Argentinian, Nicaraguan, and I have the same problem. And I'm like, damn, it's so interesting, isn't it? How you just can't force your way through
I
a filter.
still can't tell the difference between an American accent and a Canadian accent.
I
Really?
can't.
No.
No, I've gotten in trouble for that several times.
Yeah, they don't
depends-
like it when you
But
say
I could
that.
tell you,
It
I
does-
could tell you where a Brit was from by
I can
like
tell
a
you where an
30-mile
Australian's
radius.
from.
Yeah,
Like most
like
people
a
think we don't
British
have accents. We've got at
person-
least 5.
Not all Canadians have
Britain.
the-
You can
the
literally
Canadian
do
accent,
like
though.
20 miles. Yeah.
Like some
I mean, yeah,
Canadians
you've got
have pretty
so many, Mike.
neutral.
Yeah, well, we had to do something. We've been around so long. We had to find something to do, didn't we? Inventing accents.
Well,
it's
you
fine.
know the language.
It was either that or invade other countries without permission.
That's
It's,
at least you
it's-
piped down.
We
You,
did both.
you settled.
say,
and
yeah,
you
I don't
stopped
think it is either.
invading.
No, it's
You're
all right, it's all right.
okay. In any case, I feel like I need to take this dog for a walk before my next meeting before she destroys my house.
Clearly.
Which is very good though, because first couple of days she was just shitting inside. She now tries very hard to occupy herself until I can take her out. So
That's really
a
fast.
plus. I know she's
I'm very much the
very
same when I move somewhere new. It's fine.
shit in the house or just break stuff. I get it. Classic Mike Bithell. No,
Classic
she's,
Mike
she's
Bithell,
so
famous for
receptive
it.
to positive and negative feedback that she's really easy to train. Like
How old?
That's good.
She's 4.
Wow, that's even more surprising.
Yep, very easy to train. But she has basically an eating disorder, so she can't eat anything other than her exact prescribed food. So you can't train her with treats. You can only train her with positive reinforcement. So
You know what
thank
my
God
dog
it
loves? We give her
Very
as
much like me
a
again.
treat. She gets so excited, and she's the cheapest date ever. She loves ice. And so
She would be
yeah,
allowed to have ice. I could try that.
that's the thing. Like it's somehow seen as so like we make smoothies a fair amount. So I go to the ice dispenser with
She gets excited?
and she freaks out. So it has to, it's like we have to give her ice when we make smoothie. But as a result, she loves it when we do it, and it's the easiest treat ever. And obviously,
give it a try.
we have the same. But sometimes the slightest thing, I'm like you're such a delicate little flower that like a microscopic alteration to your diet, and we have hell to pay for it.
She will die is the issue.
Oh, well, it's not
if she
that
has if she has anything that isn't her prescribed food, it will kill her. Which is very stressful when you go on a walk and she gets something in her mouth. Thankfully, she's not aggressive, so I can just take it out of her mouth and she won't do anything about it. But anytime she picks something up, I'm like, no, you'll die. Please, no. She wouldn't die immediately. It would take a bit. Like, it's just not a good time. I got to take her for a walk.
All right, have
Thank
fun.
you, everybody, for watching. This is Play, Watch, Listen. Troy Baker was here. That's Austin Wintry. He's a video game composer. That's Mike Bithell. It doesn't work when you record it either, Austin, because it's not my perspective.
Pretty sure you're pointing at the dog saying that's Mike
I just look
Bithell.
like a dummy. That's Mike Bithell.
That's fair.
Poops in the house or plays with stuff.
That's me.
Noted.
You just get stressed in any place, you know?
Sorry, wait a minute, Alanah. Do you not poop in the house?
Never. I would never. Women don't poop. I would never.
She's got
related.
her favorite back alleys and bushes, and
I feel like we've discovered something fascinating, and
Women
it's a shame the episode
don't
has to end.
poop. We are going to be
I
at
think that's
Dice.
just an Australian thing, you know. All those.
No, they
can't-
poop upwards. rather
Women
than
don't
down in
have
Australia.
buttholes. You can't prove it. We are going to be at Dice next week, so we're going to figure out for the
shit, that's next
listeners
week.
if we can record
is next
something in the same room, which would be very cool, but we can't guarantee it because it's kind of complicated to set up. So we'll see if we can. It would be very cool if we can.
We've got the plugs for it, haven't you? So we're halfway
Hey,
there.
I'm fucking set back here. I'll just bring that whole brick. You'll regret making fun of me. We'll see you next week, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.